Hi fellow inline pilots, welcome back to the channel. This video I'm going to talk about adjusting the offset, the sideways offset of the frame on the inline skates. I've been wanting to make a video about this for a long time, but I found out it's a bit of a controversial topic. Not everybody has the same ideas about it, and I wasn't also sure about what's going on and how to find out how to adjust the frame, but over time I found out some things that I think are worth sharing, and is going to make some sense and allow people to really find out whether they need to shift their frame and where they need to shift it. So let's now first have a look at why you might need to adjust your frames. When you're a beginner skater, often you fall to one side of your skate because you have no strength in your ankles to stay in the middle. So you either fall to the inside or you might fall to the outside. That doesn't mean that you have to shift your frame. The real reason you might need to shift your frame has to do with the shape of your foot, and we have to talk particularly about the difference between pronating feet and supinating feet. This is what normal feet should look like, and this is what pronated feet look like. See, my heel is kind of tilted to the inside, but more importantly for skating, my ankle is not above my heel anymore, it's more to the inside as well. And this is for supinated feet, which is the other way around. Now my heel is tilted to the outside and my ankle is shifted to the outside relative to the heel. And this is normal again. If you look from the side, a normal foot has a bit of an arch. There's a gap between the floor and the middle of my foot on the left, on the inside. Pronated foot has a collapsed arch. That's why they call it flat feet, because now the entire foot touches the floor, while a supinated foot has a very extremely high arch. As you can see, there's a huge gap. Sometimes some feet actually do not touch even on the outside at all. But more commonly people have pronated feet somehow, I think 40%. This is how I understand how it works with the frame positioning. Let's say the left foot is a normal foot, and you got a nicely centered ankle because the foot is supported equally on both sides, and the wheel is also in the center. So now if you skate on one foot, the force, the weight of your body is going straight through the middle of the foot, through the wheel on the ground. So the point where your wheel is touching the ground is straight underneath the weight, the center of mass of your body. Now the right foot is an example of a pronation, where the left side is leaning to the left. So you got the ankle positioning is a bit more to the left. So now you got the weight of your body going like that. But the wheel is over here, it's in the center of the footbed. So it's because the center of your mass is to the left of your wheel, if you remove the left foot, you're just going to fall down to the left, or your skate will just tilt to the left, and you have to kind of lean into your cuff or something, I don't know. That's not going to be a good balance. So if you want to correct this, instead, if you cannot correct your foot, let's say your foot is just like that, or maybe you just don't have the strength in the muscles of your arch yet to put your ankle in the middle, but you still want to start skating, then instead of first having to train your foot for 1 year, it will take a long time, which might even not work. You can start skating by just shifting your frame to where your center of mass is in your skate, and then you can start skating straight away. For me, the difference between the center of my weight and the wheel was so large that I couldn't skate at all. Some trainers, I've seen YouTube videos, they say, well, first try it out and maybe you just need to have more strength and it will come, and then you don't need to adjust your frame. And then they say if you adjust your frame, maybe it's because of something else, and then something else will not be helped, and then everything gets worse. Well, for me, if I wouldn't have done this, the offset correction, I wouldn't be skating today, because it was so much that it was just painful. I was able to put myself on center edge, but it was creating so much pressure points in my skate, and was pushing my my cuff against my ankle on the inside. Anyway, it wasn't possible. So for me, I would have stopped in 1 month and just put my skates on eBay or whatever. But after I adjusted the wheels, that problem was solved, and I could start actually skating, just starting to learn. Before I couldn't even start learning. So for some people, the problem is so bad that they can't even start skating. They can't find out whether it's maybe this or maybe something else. They need to adjust it straight away. Otherwise, they can't even start learning. They can't even start training their muscles with skating, because there's no way they can skate. Of course, if you skate on 2 feet, this is not a problem, because if you skate on 2 feet, then the basis that you're balancing on is divided, is the whole area between the 2 skates. And then of course your center of mass is inside this basis. But as soon as you lift up the other skate, you will fall down, because it's not balanced anymore, because it's not the basis is not the whole area, it's just this point. And then that doesn't work. Now what you could do, instead of changing the frame offset, if you want to start skating and do real edge work, to put your the point of on the ground underneath the center of your mass, what you could do is just tilt your whole skate out to the outside. You're actually supinating your skate. Now, then, of course, the leg will be a little bit different angle. So you got like going like that. So you still have the center of mass straight above the point on the ground, but now your skate is tilted, and that means that if you got a cuff, of course you got a hard boot, and then boot it like that, then this ankle is going to run into the side of your boot. So maybe you need a soft boot then if you want to do that. So that can be the reason that you don't like hard boots, because you might have pressure points if you need to tilt your skate like that. And you might need a soft boot to be able to make the tilt of your skate to compensate for the location of your wheel. And it can also be the reason that maybe you got a lot of pressure points somewhere that might be relieved by changing the offset of the wheel. So that's another reason to change the offset of the wheel, to get rid of some pressure points, or to change them. There's a second way to compensate for an ankle that's not exactly above the wheel, to still be on center edge. And I think in practice it's kind of a combination of the previous method and this one, and that is to kind of tilt your leg a little bit to the outside. Because now the center of your mass is shifted above the wheel by just tilting your leg a little bit outside. And then it goes like this. So the center of mass doesn't go straight through your ankle anymore, but a bit to the outside of your foot. And what you will notice if you do this is that you have much more pressure on the bottom of the right side of your foot, the outside of your foot, in this case the right foot is the right side, than on the left side. So it might even start to hurt. Actually, I've got a callus on my foot, on the front outside of my foot, because I have to press so hard on the outside of my skate. And that is how I tell now whether my wheel position is correct or not. If I feel too much pressure on the outside, I move my wheel away, I shift the frame away from that pressure. So I would shift my frame to the inside. If I go too far, and I think it's good to kind of try to see how it feels when you move the frame all the way to the inside, and then if it's too much, what you feel is that you feel too much pressure on the inside of your foot. And it might even start to hurt on the inside of the front of the foot, the ball of your foot on the inside. Then you know if you feel too much pressure on the inside, you need to shift the frame away again to the outside. So that's how I find out which way I need to shift my wheel, or if I need to shift it at all. You need to first find that position where you're above the center of your wheel. You're on center edge, either by tilting your skate or by putting more pressure on the outside. Make sure that you don't fall to one side or the other. Then find out how much pressure there is on each side of your foot and see if it's in balance, or there's too much pressure on the outside or the inside of your foot, and move the wheel, the frame, accordingly. So if you're a beginner and you can't skate yet, or very little, at least not on one foot, which is necessary to really know how your frame needs to be offset while you're skating, the second best method that I know of is just standing on one foot but holding on to something. Preferably, maybe you can find a piece of grass where you don't roll away and hold on to a fence, preferably not the barbed wire fence, of course. Hold on and then lift up the other foot. Hold it close to you. Don't lift it all the way away from your body. Just keep it in the center as much as possible. And then on the skate that's on the ground, find out that point where you don't fall to the inside and also you don't fall to the outside. So you just have to try to fall, and you just to shift your skate, tilt it until it falls the other way, and tilt it back until it falls back the first way, and then find that point in between where you don't fall one way and also you don't fall the other way. It's really important to find that point, because if you don't find that point, there's no point in trying to feel which way you should shift your frame, because there's no balance at all. You first need to find that balance, and then you find the feel on the bottom of your foot whether it needs to be shifted. So what I do is, once I'm on that center edge, I just feel on the ball of my foot. So that's kind of the front part before your toes start, where you put some of your weight. Of course, you got a lot of weight on the heel, but there's also weight on the front of your foot, and it's either spread equally between left and right, inside and outside, or it's more on one side than on the other. And if it's more on one side than on the other, then that means you need to shift your frame away from the pressure side. So let's say you've got your feet are pronated, then it's likely that you feel, when you're on that center edge, you find that balance, then it's likely then at that point you feel more pressure on the outside of your foot. Then you need to shift your frame away from that side, which means shifting your frame to the inside. If on the other hand you feel too much pressure, maybe you shifted your frame, you feel too much pressure on the ball of your foot on the inside of your foot, where the other foot is, that means you have to shift your frame again away from that to the outside. So this is how I find, what I find the best way to find out if you need to shift your frame and in which, to which side you need to shift it. So really find that balancing point, otherwise there's no point, there's no way telling how to shift your frame. If you can't get your foot on balance because it's so much, I mean your skate may be preventing them, tilting your boot far enough to fall to the other side, then maybe you need to loosen up your skate. But I prefer to have the skate tightened just like you would normally skate, because otherwise the foot situation will change and it will not be the same situation that you have when you're skating. But at least if you can't do anything else, then better to adjust it to a loose skate than not adjust it at all, of course. So yeah, that's how I would start. Of course you want to do the other side as well, the other foot. So then you just lift up the right foot and then do the same again with the left foot. Try to find that balance point and then try to sense where you feel most pressure, on which side, or maybe it's equal and you don't need to shift your frame. Of course your frame is attached to your boot at two different places, at the front and on the back. And most frames that can be adjusted sideways have a separate possibility for the front and the back. I would first start with the back side. If you have pronation or supination, that's where most of the consequences will be. And then In this balancing, you just need to put most of your weight on the back of your skate, on the heel. So just lean a bit backwards, make sure you don't fall. Of course, you're holding on to a fence or something else. But then you can easily put most of your weight on the heel safely, and still sense on the front of your foot where you feel most of the pressure, on the left or the right. And then if you want to later, after you're done with the back side, you're happy with the offset, then you can do the same for the front. Then just lean forwards and put most of your weight on the front of your foot and do exactly the same. Just balancing and then sensing on which side of your front of your foot you feel most pressure. So for both the back side and the front side, you sense the difference in pressure on the front of your foot. It's just that you lean backwards while doing it for the back side, and you lean forwards while doing it for the front side. And the adjustment of the frame doesn't need to be perfect right away. You can adjust it roughly to where you feel right when you're standing still. And then when you start skating, maybe while you're skating you feel also a little bit different pressure on one side of the foot than the other. And then you know, well, next time you skate, before the next time you start skating, you just adjust your frame a little bit, maybe 1 millimeter in the direction away from where you feel the pressure. And then next time you skate, see how it feels. If it feels better, maybe you shifted your frame too much, but now you feel too much pressure on the other side, then you shift it back again before the next time you start skating. So it can be an ongoing process. It doesn't have to be right in one day. Before adjusting your frame, maybe it's also a good idea to get some insoles like these. This is called Superfeet, and these have a cup shape. Sorry that it doesn't look very clean anymore. I've used these for a long time, and it's really hard. It's not soft here, but it's got a cup shape to keep the heel in the middle, so you don't do, at least the bottom of the heel doesn't slide around in the skate. It's important to have that at least fixed at one position. That gives a lot of stability and control. And of course, if you start adjusting the frame but your heel is shifting around, then it messes up your kind of sense of where the frame should be, because your heel is not at the same place all the time. I think that might cause problems if you don't have a good positioning of the heel before you start adjusting the frame. I put these in the skates underneath the liner, but you can also put them in the liner. For me, it fitted very well in the skate, so I just left them there. So maybe an idea. Also, because it's kind of a cup shape, it doesn't absorb shocks, but it spreads the force of any shock over your entire heel shape, instead of only in the middle where your heel touches normally a flat floor. Because it's not flat, it touches more of your heel at the same time, which spreads the force and prevents your heel from being hurt by shocks. I'm going to show how to adjust the frame, and so you can see if you can actually adjust the frame, because not all skates allow it. So let me show how that works technically. First of all, the way that you need to adjust is by changing the position of the frame, where it's attached to the boot. And there's a bolt that you can only access by removing the wheel, unless you have a big gap in between your wheels there, exactly there. But if it's not exactly underneath, then don't do it without removing the wheel, because you don't want to put the key in under an angle. The bolt needs to be accessible completely straight. On the front, my skate on front has, because this Trinity frame, has the bolts on the outside, which makes it a bit easier, although I got now 2 bolts, but most skates have 1 bolt in the middle, just like in the back I've got here. And then you also need to remove a wheel on the front, probably. So let's see. Also, you need to take care that there are 2 types of keys mainly. This is a star-shaped key, it's called the Torx key. And then you've got also the hex key, which has an hexagonal shape, like that. And on the wheels, the axles, they have mostly one of those 2. And then the bolts on the boot, they have also one of those 2. But they don't need to be necessarily the same. So it can be that you use a hex bolt for the wheels, the axles on the wheels, but a Torx on the boot, or the other way around. Like I've got here Torx on the wheels, And actually I've also got Torx there, but in the beginning it was a hex bolt. So first you have to check which wheel you need to remove. So in this case the bolt is like around here, so I need to remove the back wheel. If you need to don't need to remove the back wheel but the middle wheel, it makes it a bit easier because you can try out whether the frame is correct without putting the middle wheel back. You can just leave it out until you've found the perfect position. But in my case, and I think in most cases, yeah, that's kind of the back wheel and the front wheel you need to remove, and then you need to put them back to try out the new setting. And then you have to remove them again to adjust, because it's never going to be perfect the first time, unfortunately. So put the bolts on some paper. This wheel brake has a double bolt, so I need to remove it from both sides. Some skates you need to remove the whole heel brake. You can leave it off until you found the right position. You don't need to put on the heel brake every time you're going to try out the frame position. Okay, now I've got the wheel removed. Now I can get access to the bolt. So as I said, this bolt is also a star-shaped Torx type. You have to make sure that you put the key in all the way to the back of the bolt, and also very straight. Because if you put a lot of pressure, a lot of force on the bolt, but the key is not all the way in, you might strip the hole, and that destroys the bolt of the boot as well as the key. If the key wears down and the edges are not sharp anymore, then that will happen more and more often, so you have to be very careful. When you start applying force, make sure it's all the way in, straight into the bolt. I'm loosening it now. I don't have to take of course I don't need to take the bolt all the way out, but it needs to be loose enough to move. Now my preference is to loosen up the back bolt completely, but the front bolt, or the two bolts in this case, I'm not going to loosen them completely, because otherwise the frame moves around too much and I don't know where it came from. So I'm going to, in this case, one of the bolts I'm going to loosen completely, but the other one I'm going to leave it on, or maybe loosen a little bit if it's necessary, but I should be able to probably shift the frame now. So let's see. Yeah, so I can move the frame sideways now. You can see it better from the back. So now I can move it all the way to the outside of the skate. So this is the inside, this is where the other foot is. This is the outside. I can move it all the way to the outside, or all the way to the inside. And that's because there's actually a groove, in this case, in the skate itself, which allows the bolt to move the frame. It's kind of like the same as the frame I've got here. The frame has a hole, in this case, going from back to front, so I can't move sideways. Some frames have a hole that goes sideways, and then that will allow you to shift the frame. But in this case, there's a groove in the boot where the nut is for the bolt that can shift sideways, so that allows me to shift this frame sideways. So yeah, that's how you shift it. And then, because I didn't loosen this bolt all the way, I can shift it and it stays in place. It doesn't fall one way or the other. I can carefully change it a little bit, then tighten this bolt again, because that's going to fix the position again. Like that. And then tighten up the front bolt, or both, even if you didn't loosen it, you might still need to tighten it again after doing the rotation by shifting the back side to make sure that it's all the way tight. And then of course you have to put the wheel back in order to test the new position. If you're not going to, if you're only going to try it out for testing the position of the frame, you don't need to over tighten the bolts too much. But it's a good idea to do it anyway, because maybe you're happy with the position and then you just start skating and you forgot that you tightened it all the way. Then you start skating with loose bolts and eventually they fall out, and it causes a lot of damage to the frame. Maybe because of the threads, they are going to wear out. So yeah, maybe it's a good idea to just tighten it all the way anyway, after every adjustment. On the front, the same can be done. So there's also a groove for both of these bolts that allows adjustment sideways. And if you have got a single bolt, it's going to probably be the same as in the back. In this case, for this skate, the sideways movement is very, very small in the front, only 2 millimeters side to side. But I also found out it's not really necessary to adjust it much. For me at least it wasn't. I think it's mostly useful for if you do a lot of pushing on the front, which I don't do. I've got a rocket frame. When I push to accelerate, I push with the back side, the middle and the back. Some speed skaters probably use the front for pushing off to extend their push. They have a flat frame, of course, then it makes sense. Or if I'm skating backwards and I'm doing crossovers, then I'm using the front, so then I'm pushing on the front. So then for that I would adjust the front. So far I didn't find, for me, it needed a lot of adjustment, luckily, because there isn't much here. But for you it might be different, I don't know. But normal skating forwards, if you don't do ski speed skating and you don't push on the front, this front offset is not that important in my opinion. If I would need it, there's another way to offset the frame that I used in the beginning, because this sideways movement was not enough for me in the beginning, because my feet were so much pronated that my perfect setting was outside the range of this. So I needed to use something else to add to the sideways offset, which are these wedges. For the front, I got these two. One is smaller, slimmer than the other, to tilt the frame. So instead of shifting it, you can tilt it, and that also changes the position of the bottom of the wheel. Like if it would be tilted, then it changes like that, relative to the skate. That's another way to shift, because it's just about where this point on the ground is relative to your skate. It doesn't matter what angle your wheels are. So there's another way to change that. And I could do that to shift the whole frame, which would also shift the front and give me a little bit more sideways motion offset. So if I would need that, then I could use these again. These wedges of power slide are called the stride control, by the way. So you can look up and see if you can find it somewhere. For the type of frame that you have, this is for the Trinity frame. Got three wedges. But for the normal 165 frame, you need only 2. You need a separate set. But I found that after skating for a year, I started thinking maybe I don't need such a big offset anymore. I think I got a little bit more strength in those arch muscles. So what I did after a year is take off all the offset. So I took off these wedges and I put the frame in the middle, completely in the back and the front, and I tried it and I found out I could skate even with the frame in the middle again. So I tried that out. I thought, no, I'm healed, I'm normal again. So I started skating with the frame in the middle again for maybe a half year or more. But I found that on my left skate everything was fine, my left foot, but on my right foot I started finding that when I did backwards gliding on one foot, I couldn't center my direction. I was always drifting off to one side. So then I started thinking like, okay, maybe I still need to adjust them a little bit. Maybe not as much as before, but maybe I still need some adjustment. But the strange thing was that I found out that I had to adjust the right skate all the way back to the inside again, because I'm pronating, so I needed to shift the frame to the inside, and I needed to do it almost all the way. So I still needed to have a lot of shift to get the perfect balance. So I could skate without any shift, but to get better balance on my feet, I needed to shift it all the way to the inside, which apparently is quite a lot compared to what normal people apparently adjust their frame. But for me it was necessary. Only I did the same with the left foot, because I think, okay, my feet are kind of similar. So I did the same again with my left feet, but then I started finding that I was kind of pushing too much on the inside of my foot, on the left foot. So I started adjusting my left foot again. And then I found out the left foot should be in the center. So it seems like my left foot somehow normalized, but my right foot didn't, only a little bit. So make sure that you just check both feet and don't think that they should be roughly the same. They can be very different, even though my feet look similar. I don't see any visual difference between them, but somehow my left foot doesn't need any center offset anymore, but my right foot does need a lot. So make sure that you just objectively feel out both feet and don't think that they should be the same. So this is the way I adjust my frames, and it helped me a lot to skate on center edge. When you do this and you can get it right, you're going to feel so much more stable on your skates. You're going to ask yourself, why didn't I do this earlier? I'm sure if you need it, but of course many people probably don't need it. If you're a trainer, a skating trainer, I would say also find out how this works. Try out you shifting your frame and feel how it changes the feeling of your foot in your skate, because it will help you to advise people who do need it. And I think there is something called survivor bias, which probably causes most skating trainers to not have this problem, because if they would have the problem, they probably wouldn't have been becoming skating trainers, because they would have been challenged in skating and they might skate but not as good as would be necessary to become a trainer. So I think there is something like survivor bias here. So maybe most trainers do not know how to do this because they don't need it. Anyway, I hope that this helps prevent people from not skating because they cannot do it, because their frame is simply not adjusted correctly. And they never get to skate because the first couple of weeks they think this is not for me. They give up and they start playing computer games or whatever, and they miss out on all the fun of skating and the health benefits and everything. I hope this can prevent that and have everybody who wants to try skating have an honest go and see how it is for them to skate with a correctly adjusted frame before deciding whether they really want to continue skating or do something else. So I think this is something that every beginner skater should try, and should try to adjust as soon as possible. I mean, that's how my opinion probably differs from most people who are talking about frame offset. I think this is really something you should start out with, but you should keep doing it, of course, as you progress. You might need to adjust it later when your foot gains more strength, your ankle gains more strength. You might need to adjust it later. But adjust it from the start, that's what I would do. Okay, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe and everything if you think it's worth something. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.